Welcome to the Breakthrough to Brilliance podcast, where we have inspiring and insightful conversations about breaking free from life's biggest challenges to find fulfillment and purpose. I am your host, Seema, an international speaker, best-selling and award-winning author, book writing mentor, and publisher. I bring you real-life stories of healing and transformational journeys so that you know that you can create life on your own terms. Our heart-centered guests are the everyday heroes that you find in your backyard, from mothers to sisters to friends to entrepreneurs and authors. Join us to hear their positive and powerful stories so you too can learn to live with purpose and joy. Welcome to Breakthrough to Brilliance podcast. I'm so happy to be here with you for another amazing episode. And today we're doing the author series for Break Free to Health and Vitality, our last wellness book that became #1 international bestseller on Amazon. And today I'm joined with our amazing author, Donya Fahmy. So we're going to hear more about her and her interview in just a second. As usual, let's get started with the grounding exercises with a quick meditation. So if you're driving, please don't close your eyes, but do follow along. And for the rest of us, feel free to close your eyes and join with us. So just taking a deep breath, a deep inhale all the way to your belly. And exhale. You've had appointments before this and a lot of things to do afterwards, but for just right now, just let all of that go and just relax into your seat. Take in another deep breath all the way to your belly and exhale. And just let go of anything that is not serving you right now. With your next deep inhale, I would like you to bring your focus to your heart. And you may want to put your hand on your heart to bring that awareness there if you like. And with that, I would like you to think of a happy moment. It can be from any time period in your life, in your childhood, your young adulthood, or even today. And I want you to relive that moment as if you're living it for the first time. Just imagine the joy and the bliss, maybe the people that you were with. Think of what you were doing that made you so happy, that brought a smile to your face and made your heart sing. Take that in and let that in. And just enjoy that blissful feeling in your body. Embody that. And with your next deep inhale, I want you to bring your awareness to the top of your head where the crown chakra is, and think of a second happy moment. Again, it can be from any time period of your life. And I want you to live that moment as if you're living it for the very first time. Again, think of the people you were with. What were you doing? What was the ambiance? And to embody that joyful, blissful feeling that made your heart sing and that you just enjoyed time with whoever you were with. Use your senses of smell, of touch, and just take that in for a second. And with your next deep inhale and exhale, I want you to open your mind and heart to what you might hear from us today. There might be a message for you, or perhaps someone else that needs to hear it from you. And I would invite Donya and myself to also open up our minds and heart to what our audience, our listeners, need to hear from us today. And with your next big inhale and exhale, let's all be in the present and in the moment for now. Totally 100% present with each other, for each other. And with your next inhale, you may open your eyes with a great big smile. Donya, welcome to our show. It's such a pleasure having you here.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
So, with that meditation, what was called to your heart?
I'm sorry, say again?
With that meditation we just did,
Yes.
what was called on your heart?
It was called on my heart. That's an interesting question. I think it's just to be wrapped in love and joy.
Wonderful.
Yeah, surrounded by that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or enveloped, maybe, is another way to think about it.
Enveloped, I love that. You don't hear people using that too often, but really, that really sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, I want to give a formal introduction of Donya Fahmy so our listeners can hear how amazing you are.
Aw.
Donya is in the field of natural health and wellness for more than 20 years. Donya is an alchemist in chief for Sustainable Health Solutions Incorporated. She's also a speaker, a #1 Amazon international bestselling author, and a sustainable wellness success mentor. She loves helping smart, busy women who are tired and overwhelmed have more sustained energy, better focus, and stronger immunity with customized natural solutions that last. Because wellness is not a one size fits all prescription, this is exactly how Donya healed herself from 2 decades of multiple chronic health problems, successfully accomplishing what doctors and traditional medicine couldn't. Wow, that is an amazing story, Donya. And I think that's where we have so much in common because
Yeah.
I had the same issue with autoimmune disease where doctors are calling me crazy, a hypochondriac, there's nothing wrong with you, just go home. But at the same time, giving me tons of medication. Let's try this, let's try this, let's try this.
Yeah.
So, what can you share us a little bit about how, what your illness was and how you overcame that?
Sure. Well, I actually had multiple chronic health problems. None of them were very severe or serious, thankfully. But still, it's enough that it is kind of a drag on you, on your ability to enjoy life, to be productive when you're dealing with things. For me, it started with a variety of upper respiratory issues when I was in my 20s, and then back then we were taking a lot of antibiotics and things that probably more than what was needed to address the issue, but hard to say, obviously. So I had a lot of garden variety allergies, and then those kind of developed into recurring sinus infections, and then sinus infection moved into my chest and became bronchitis. And then I had what you'd call adult onset asthma. And then from there, so this was several years now, we're talking about like maybe 5-6 year period that all of this was going on. And of course, I was seeking answers and solutions from doctors and traditional medicine because that's how I was raised. I think we were all kind of raised in culture to think that when you have a problem, you go to the doctor and the doctor fixes it. But unfortunately, in my case, it just felt like a recurring pattern, right? And it was not constant, but it was up and down, up and down. I did have also at the same time, I had chronic fatigue. And I'd have days where I was totally fine and I was in my 20s. So I'd go out and I'd play and party. And then I'd have days where I couldn't get out of bed. I was just so like bone tired and exhausted. I just couldn't. And this is, kind of unusual for someone in their 20s. You expect them to have a higher energy level. I also then I grew up in New York City, and then I moved to San Francisco when I was in my late 20s. And within 6 months of that, I started having these asthma-like problems. Not really trouble breathing, but there were just this kind of weird wheezing thing. And so I went and got that checked out. And then I was having digestive issues, which I'd been having for a while. So then I was diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, which was that was before it was an actual thing, when it was still a new thing, because I don't want to date myself too much here, give away. But, it was kind of like this thing. And I thought, well, gosh, and they told me, they said, it's very common. A lot of people have it. We don't know what causes it. And there's no cure for it. And I was like scratching my head and going, what do you? I thought about it and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. That's just code for you don't know. You don't know what it is and you don't know how to deal with it. I didn't really give it much thought. And it wasn't until a couple of years after that I had what I call my crisis, my health crisis, which I had a really, really bad case of eczema. that came suddenly from out of nowhere. And it was so vicious, like and intense that first time around. I was like, I would scratch myself in my sleep until I bled and not even know it until I woke up in the morning. And then I'd be like, oh, God, that's not nice, And then I went through a difficult period. At the time, I was working in corporate. I went through a difficult period. I'd wake up and I'd shower and I'd get dressed for work. And within 5 minutes of putting the pantyhose on, the unbearable itching would start. And I'd have to undress, put, like a cotton shirt on, and then call in sick, because I just couldn't even deal with getting dressed and having anything touching my skin. That was the initial episode, and it was that was the worst. But what happened was that it kept coming back. So every 6 months or so, I'd have an episode. An episode lasts 5-6 weeks. And I went from one dermatologist to another dermatologist, seeking answers, seeking solutions. No one could tell me what was causing it or why it was happening. No one had a different treatment protocol to suggest. It was always the same. So it was like cortisone and antihistamine, like prescription strength. And it just made me crazy because it didn't seem to be working. You know what I mean? Like it just wasn't that effective. The only thing that was cortisone shots. They were the only thing that would prevent the itching, that would stop the intense itching. But then I was warned even back then by the doctors that, cortisone can have serious long-term side effects. And so it's not recommended that you take that on any kind of a regular basis. But it seemed like every time I had an outbreak and I'd go seek support from, a dermatologist, that I'd get the same thing. And so I was getting increasingly stressed out about this and frustrated because I felt like, oh my God, we're never going to resolve it. And so then I finally went to my primary care physician at the time and told her this is what's been going on. And she said, well, I'm not going to give you a cortisone shot. And I said, okay, well, what do you got for me? And I was like, oh, maybe something new. She goes, well, we don't know. We as doctors don't know how cortisone works in the body. We don't know if you took the shot and then a few months later your problem came back, if it came back because it wore off or if it came back for another reason. And that was a big red flag moment for me. I was like, oh my God, I had this thought in my head. I was like, they don't know what they're doing. If they don't know why they're doing, why am I still here? Like, how much worse could it be if I tried something different? And that catapulted me very rapidly, actually, onto this path of natural healing, plants as medicine. I started immersing myself in that information.
So what was that key thing that really helped you heal?
Well, it was a journey. So I'm going to say that it just happened, like it wasn't like, okay, I fired the doctors, I'm going to take matters into my own hands. That was the first important step. And then it was a sort of journey of inquiry and trial and error, working with herbs, working with essential oils, working with homeopathic remedies, working with, the whole gamut of plants. And it was in kind of an unfolding journey, meaning the more I learned about these, the more I also learned about just how basic lifestyle issues or choices had an overall impact on my health. So it was, I started reading labels on products and just really trying to minimize my exposure to synthetic chemicals, to toxins, to petroleum ingredients, both in the personal care realm and in my food. And I really became kind of obsessed with it. I would spend hours. What did you
discover for yourself during the unfolding? I know for me, it was an unfolding, and because you're trying something new, it's a long journey of trial and error. Right. But then I realized for me, the reasons that I had autoimmune issues is because of denying myself of my own self-care, of always putting other people first, not eating properly because of that, not exercising, having all kinds of other people's mindset and beliefs put on me, and me believing it when it wasn't true. So I had to go and undo all of those things. What was it for you that you realized through your journey?
I mean, I'd say the biggest realization for me, and this would be more retroactively kind of looking back, because a lot of times we're not necessarily 100% conscious of everything that we're doing. We're trying a lot of different things, and some things work and some things don't. But the important thing, I think, for me on my journey is that everything I didn't necessarily make me a whole lot better, but I didn't backslide. You weren't going backwards, right? It wasn't like you tried one thing that worked and then you tried this thing and then it didn't work and you're back to where you started or you're back to where you were with the first thing. Everything was like an incremental improvement. And the big lesson for me out of that journey was the minute I stopped relying on other people to fix my health problems, because every time I did, it never happened, right? It was just kind of this ongoing thing. And the minute I took 100% full responsibility for my own health and my lifestyle choices, then answers and solutions started coming in different ways, different times. But as long as I was open to that and being present with the need for me to take responsibility and be responsible in all the choices that I make, that just opened, I don't know, a gateway or a portal. Who knows? It's just the universe brought me what I needed. And of course, I also sought the support of alternative practitioners, chiropractic and massage, and worked with homeopaths for a while, people who are sort of well studied or educated in these modules or modalities, I would say, modalities to support me, so that it wasn't like, because otherwise you're always going to be questioning yourself and saying, well, am I doing the right thing? Do I need to do more of that? Should I add this thing in? Should I take this thing out? And you can make yourself crazy doing that. So
definitely, yes.
yeah.
And that's one of, you just had a key point that I would like our listeners to really focus on, because the whole point of having the podcast and doing the books and being in the line of work you and I are in is to give a shortcut to our listeners who might be going through similar things, because they don't have to take 10, 15 years like you and I did to figure things out. So the key thing that you said was taking control of your own health.
Yeah.
We rely so much on others and doctors to figure it out for us, but you have to be a partner. Your doctors are a partner with you in trying to evaluate what your issues are. But they don't have the final say, because they don't know you and your body like you do. So you have to take that lead in your wellness and look at what are the things that you are doing. Sometimes we forget to tell some important things to the doctors that is critical because we think it's not that important. Yeah. But look at what is going in your mind. What are you telling yourself? Who are the people around in your life? It's about food, your activity, your environment. Environment includes where you're living, the physical one, including your people, including the chemicals that you're using for cleaning and stuff, because we don't think of
everything.
Including the lotions and makeups that we're putting on, because we don't think. The first thing we look at is, okay, what is the food we're eating? What are we moving or not? And there's so many other factors. So look at all those things. And then Donya also said she looked at alternative health people too, like a chiropractor,
homeopath
practitioner.
I worked with a homeopath too.
Homeopath, yes. There's so many others, and sometimes all of these people, your traditional Western medicine and alternative medicine, can work together hand in hand. That's what I found, that it can work together hand in hand. There's a time and place for all of these options. It's not just one size fits all, like you said, and it's not like, when I was bedridden, I needed the medication. When we figured out what was wrong with me, I needed the medication to get out of pain so I could have my mind and senses intact to decide what to do next. I knew that medicine was not going to be there forever, right, once we were moving along the journey. But there's a time and place for everything, and we need to be aware of that. And through all these years of figuring it out and now helping others, you're not a first-time author. This is your second book, Retreat to Health and Vitality, and now you become a #1 international best-selling author. How does that feel?
That's great. I was actually a #1 best-selling author before.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you are 2 times.
The context was a little bit different. The last book was more business-oriented. So I was more focused on corporate wellness and how to sort of take some of the lessons from my personal experience and apply it in that context. What I love about this particular book is that it's more broad-based and it's for everyone. It's making it accessible to all people. And I feel like sharing our stories is so important, right? Because they are journeys and we learn so many lessons, and some of those lessons are nuggets of gold. And so we want to be able to share those with people so that even maybe not struggling with the same type of issues. So this is one of the other observations that I've come across over the years, which is a lot of times we are too focused on whatever set of symptoms or issues we're having in a particular moment in time, right? So we're so focused on addressing that we overlook the bigger picture, right? This is a whole that's what holistic health is really all about. It's looking at the whole body rather than that one part of your body that seems to not be working properly at that time. And so what I find is that because of that super narrow focus, a lot of times we miss important clues about what else might be going on, right? So that's why I like to kind of I don't believe that my philosophy is your health is not a one size fits all prescription. We're all unique in our, metabolic, the way our metabolism works, our genetics, everything is unique about us. But I think that what I like to do is provide people with a framework for understanding what's important to pay attention to and what's not. And I very firmly believe that if you stick to that framework and you work it, that it will work for you, right? So the idea is that the underlying principle about it is like, just learn how to get out of your own way. Because I think what we do is a lot of times we sabotage our own health and our well-being, not necessarily intentionally. I think it's unintentionally, subconsciously.
You don't even know that you're doing that.
You don't know that you're doing that, yeah. Because
hindsight.
nobody teaches you this stuff. We don't learn it in school, and you don't learn it from your doctors. They don't have time, and a lot of them aren't even quite as well versed in, because things have changed over time, and they're trained in a certain particular way, and so that's how they look at every issue. And then, but now we have this whole other piece, which is, the nutrition, very critical piece. There's no question that has a direct impact on your health and your well-being, as well as your exposure to toxins and your emotional world, right? So this is like, there's something called the science of epigenetics, and it looks at how external factors, environmental, emotional, impacts our genetic traits. So not our core genetic code, but certain traits or characteristics. And like, just by way of an example, how easily it is for us to either lose weight or gain weight, how effective our bodies are at warding off cancerous tumors or not. All of these things are like traits that are like switches that can be turned on and off and are influenced by all these things. So that's why it's really important to understand the relationship between your inner world and your outer world, and then do the things that are going to allow you to have the optimal relationship between the two.
Is this what you hope the readers to get out of your book?
Yeah, it's one of the things I talk about in there. I obviously share my story and the frustration and how I got into this whole world of natural healing and healthy living and plant-based living, and my theory and my philosophies and my insights. But yeah, and then I go take people through what I call my whole life detox process. And it's just a simple 4-step framework to help people identify where and how they're being needlessly exposed to toxins that they don't need to be exposed to, that are weakening them in ways they can't see until it becomes a bigger problem.
Right, and they can get this detail from reading your wonderful chapter from there. Now, most of the number one question that I get asked from our readers and listeners is, what was it like to write the chapter? What was that experience like? So what was that experience like for you?
It was interesting going through it a second time, right? Mm-hmm. For me, writing has always been one of my strong suits and something I love to do. I'm passionate about writing. And so it's really like a good exercise in kind of, how do I say it? Kind of narrowing things down, like, really getting to the core bits of information, but presenting it in a way that's really accessible to anyone, So it was a little bit of an exercise in translating all information and the data and the knowledge that I've accumulated over 20 years and filtering it down into something that's just so easy that like a 5-year-old could understand it.
Through this time, writing this time, did you have any new revelations about yourself, a new insight about you?
I don't know that I'd say would, except that it helped me to crystallize that one like nugget that bit of, relinquishing your self-control to somebody else instead of owning it and stepping into it, just really made that really crystal clear for me. I guess I always kind of knew on some level that was the ultimate lesson, but that made me really kind of pull it down and bring it down to earth.
Right. No, wonderful. Well, we are coming close to our time, and I was Donya, it looks like you have a free gift for our listeners. Can you share more about that?
Oh, sure. So it's this is a digital download, and it's called the Wellness Success Guide: 4 Simple Steps to Healthier Living. And it's a bundle, actually, of some of my top tip sheets and guides that I've put together. So it includes something called a guide to healthy ingredient swaps. So, and this is especially great for people who like to cook, but it's good for you even if you order takeout food or have food delivery, or when you're eating out. It helps you identify less healthy ingredients and what you can substitute for them, right? So like in recipes and that kind of thing. So that's number 1. It also includes my quick start guide to better sleep, right? So I have like kind of some just key points and a checklist to help you identify things that might be interfering with your ability to experience a good solid night's sleep, which is also really critical to optimal well-being and lasting wellness success. And last but not least, there's a piece in there with some 5 tips on how to detox your home. So things to be looking at that you could be, making some shifts and changes in your home to minimize your exposure to toxins in the home.
Well, that certainly sounds like a holistic approach.
Mind, body, right? Well, that is what the whole life detox process is. It's like a 4-step process that covers all those things, all those areas.
Well, that sounds great. And all of this information is going to be in the show notes. So be sure to check that out and download the wonderful free gift that Donya is giving, your Wellness Success Guide: 4 Easy Ways to Better Health. So Donya, is there any last tip you would like to give our listeners?
The only thing that I would like to stress, and again, this is kind of the encapsulation of the lessons learned over time, which is like the 2 most critical, important factors to what I call empowered self-care. These are the things that always need to be paying attention to, is lowering your exposure to toxicity. So you want to lower the toxicity in your body, and that starts with what you put in your mouth, right? So the food. The key things is to avoid foods that are contaminated, with things like pesticides, GMOs, antibiotics, hormones, and then to move away from or radically lower your consumption of sugar, especially processed sugar, and what you call pro-inflammatory polyunsaturated fats. So a lot of people are under the false impression that vegetable oils and canola and all these things are actually healthy for you. In fact, they're not. And so moving away from that to more oxidatively stable oils like coconut oil, like olive oil, like butter, like all the stuff that we're told were bad for us is actually what's good for us, ironically. So there's that. And then the stress piece is really critical too, because chronic stress can lead to a lot of physiological damage in the body. And it can also kind of accelerate cognitive decline, right? Because it can kill brain cells when you're in a state of chronic stress. And these days, it's really easy to get into a state of chronic stress because stress is all about just reacting to a perceived threat, whether it's real or not. And a lot of times it could be anything is just like a problem. You're faced with a problem or a stressful situation, then you have a physical reaction or physiological reaction. And then it just becomes kind of like a repetitive thing, like a repetitive pattern that's very kind of detrimental to your health. So it's really important to, again, lower your toxicity, lower your stress, or get a handle on it, manage it. And because both of those things will also contribute to the quality of your sleep. So it's all kind of connected. Everything's connected, but
Exactly.
We can break it down into simple components that make it easier to understand. Okay, focus here first, focus there first, and then you get the sort of long-term chain reaction that leads to the positive outcome that we all want.
No, I totally understand. I get that. It's just so important to spend time doing what you like. Also, add some fun things and enjoy things you enjoy into your life, even if it's 5-minute increments.
Sure.
Wonderful tip, Donya. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was wonderful having you, and Be sure to read Donya's chapter. The book is available through Donya. We'll put her information where you can connect with her in the show notes. And it's also available on Amazon. There's Kindle version and the print copy, whatever you like. So be sure to get that and read up more of her chapter. Thank you so much, Donya. And listeners, until next time, this is Seema. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Break Free to Brilliance podcast. I hope you enjoyed our time together. I know I did. Through this transformational journey, I hope you can see yourself taking similar steps, breaking free to your brilliance and creating the life that you desire. Be sure to subscribe to Break Free to Brilliance wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also follow along with us on social media using the links in the show notes below. We'll see you again for next week's episode.